Good morning. Welcome to our 2021 lecture and masterclass series. This is the final class of the semester, and today we have our third class with DJ Taz Rashid. Welcome, Taz. How are you?
I'm doing good. Oh wow, this is the last class of the. This is the last lecture. I feel a
It
lot of pressure
sure
all
is.
of a sudden. Oh wow, better be good.
It'll be great.
Thanks, Tim. What's up, everybody? If you've been joining us for this three-part series, first of all, really appreciate you showing up. And I've had a great time talking about my journey, how I've been touring, and then today we're going to be diving in and about production a little bit. We're not going to go super deep into like all the nitty-gritty, nerdy stuff, but um, for for this, sense of the time that we have. But I will share about my journey around it, what I recommend, what's been working for me, and kind of like how I'm releasing music right now because it's a big time. It's a digital world, the days of CDs and tapes. I mean, it's still out there, but it's not as hot as it used to be. So we'll talk about all these kinds of things, and of course, I love questions, especially obviously if you're watching now, please ask right away. If you're watching it later, you can always message me with it. But if you're watching this now, send Tim the questions and I'll try to answer everything during our time here. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to be sure you guys can see this presentation. Um, Actually, I need to share my screen first. Give me 1 second. Sharing screen. All right. And you guys should see my PowerPoint there. Okay, so starting off from our last week, we spoke about how I'm on Spotify. It's when some of you may be first time coming on. So I've been releasing music for the last like five, maybe 6 years now, and I've built up a pretty nice following on Spotify and just YouTube and um, Apple Music and all that. But I want to kind of talk about my production story a little bit right now. So yeah, so if you're joining for the first time, my a real quick synopsis about me. I'm a musician, music producer, DJ. I play all around the world. Obviously, since last year, I've been playing all around the world via Zoom and live stream and things like that. But I am starting to do live events again. I just did one this past Sunday in Florida. 100 some people. Things are capped, but it's feeling really good. I feel like the energy's coming back, so it's feeling super hopeful and excited. It was just really amazing to be out, with a group of people, in person doing an event. So yeah, so that's happening. So, anyways, as far as music goes, okay, excuse me, let me just mute my phone here. So as far as music goes, I have been playing music for a long time. Since about third grade I started taking piano lessons, and one of the quotes I want to start off with is, nobody's born with a style or a voice. Okay, we don't come out of the womb knowing who we are. In the beginning, we learn by pretending to be our heroes. We learn by copying, and this is something I'm going to kind of reference throughout this tutorial or this presentation today, is that it's really important to understand yourself and what you've watched or heard your whole life and what you've been surrounded by and experienced, because it's extremely important around how you're going to express yourself creatively and as an artist or sound or whatever it is. But we've all been inspired and affected in some way. Okay. um, and a lot of people are like, oh, I came up with this. Okay, sure, you came up with it, but you've probably been inspired somehow by something you've watched, seen, or heard. um, there's a T.S. Eliot, poet. It doesn't matter if you're a poet or artist or anyone in the creative field. Immature poets imitate, mature poets steal, bad poets deface what they take, and good poets make it into something better, or at least something different. um, as I've been kind of studying this whole idea of like copying and stealing and like what is all that, like it's interesting is like everyone talk like the more you'll dig into it, you'll see that like it's nothing to be like taboo about. It's something actually very okay to talk about, because we're all inspired by the music we listen to, or what movies we were seeing, and ideas are there for us. That's the best news, is that there is so much creative fuel for us in our entire surroundings. We have to be open to realize, see it, and then know how to use it for our art and craft. So I started playing piano, like classical piano, actually, like back in fifth grade. I started tinkering around like third grade. I used to figure out melodies and my with my just my right hand, and my parents were like, "Hey, like he's like figuring out." I remember like figuring out the tune for Beverly Hills Cop. I don't know if you guys remember that movie or seen it. It was like bum 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 ba dum bum 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 ba dum bum bum. Anyways, it's like an 80s 90s song. But I remember figuring that out with my right hand. I was like, oh my God, I felt like a genius. I was just like, whoa, I figured this out. And my parents were like, all right, we got to put him in some give him some lessons and um and actually teach him. So even from back then, we're copying what we were hearing. Here's a great book. It's called Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. I read this and I just was like, wow, like there's so much good stuff here. There's like a whole book written about it, how like nothing is original. And I look back in my history and I'm just like, oh my God, ever since I was a kid, I was like copying a melody or listening to us, or trying to figure out what Beethoven was doing. So we're always like learning what others are doing, so you might as well like keep doing that same process as you're building yourself as an artist, your own brand, your own sound style, because that's going to come through you eventually. Okay, but in the beginning we're kind of like, and even throughout the journey we're like emulating, this writer Jonathan Lethem said that when people call something original, 9 out of 10 times they don't know the references or the original sources involved. When a good artist understands it is nothing, is that it I can't read today, is that nothing comes from nowhere. All creative work builds on what came before. Nothing is completely original. I guess in the Bible it also said there's nothing new under the sun. And I get that. And that's what I've been kind of talking about, is that like we're all inspired. So check out that book if you can. He's got a series of 3 books. It's actually really cool. Talks about how to like really stay creative with our surroundings. And here are some of the principles from that book. And he'll obviously go over it if you go through it. Steal like an artist. Don't wait until you know who you are to get started. So like get started in the process. Write the book you want to read. In your case, if you as a musician, write the music you want to listen to. And share it with people, and like right now, because of internet, like it doesn't matter where you are, everyone can be creative and create and get it out there with the internet. Be nice, be boring. I'm not going to get into what that means. He'll talk about that. Creativity subtraction, again, he'll talk about that. But check that book out. It inspired me. So okay, so in my journey, of course I've played in rock bands as well, which has inspired me, and now that all that rock influence has inspired my music that I do now as well. But I can't say that I'm a electronic rock musician. But that music, like you'll hear a lot of guitar and actual basses and things like that, and like, oh, that sounds like a classic rock song, because I've been inspired by that. Of course, in my personal journey, I've gotten into meditation and yoga music and earth instruments, playing flutes and hand percussion and this and that. So all that has kind of like work towards what I've been doing, and creating. So all these different things that I've studied is and have been influencing the music that I've been creating. So I'll share a little bit about my music production. So I got into DJing around 2011, taught myself how to kind of like mix music and things like that. But as I was doing that, I had a MacBook Pro, and MacBook Pros come with GarageBand. So one thing I'll recommend for all you out there, if you're going into music, if you're going to music business side, you can still learn. It's called a DAW. It's like a digital workstation. It's like Cubase. Um, there's so many out there: Logic, Ableton, Reason, Pro Tools, so go on. But figure out something, like learn one DAW. Okay, especially if you're a musician or you're gonna put music out. Yes, you can get a producer and work with them, but the way the rate at which things are going now, um, everyone, it's like, it's not like there's no more excuses for you not to know a DAW, because it can live in your computer, or obviously will live in your computer, and everyone's got a computer, so like you don't have to go to some expensive studio to do it. Everyone can do it. I mean, these programs exist on uh iPhones as well, and iPads, and I don't know about the iWatch, but like, I mean, you can get it in the palm of your hands and make music. So I highly recommend learning one. I started off with GarageBand because my computer had that, and I'd spent $2,000 on a laptop, and I was like, oh, this comes with it. So back then, when I started in 2011, like all those other programs, like Ableton and Logic and Pro Tools, it seemed really difficult. I was like, whoa, this is too much for me. I was like, oh, GarageBand, this is so easy, and really it is. And GarageBand has come a long way. So if you're brand new to it, hey, it's all in steps. Start with something easy. I started with GarageBand, and that just worked for me. And like literally, like this picture is kind of funny because like that's literally back in 2011, 2000, 10, when I was kind of getting into this. Like that picture on the bottom right was kind of like how it was. I had a little keyboard, and my laptop and headphones, and I was just like making some beats and music. And because I knew how to play piano really well and I knew theory, it came really uh, pretty easy to me right off the bat because I understood theory. So the other thing I will talk about right now is that if you are going into music or you want to produce music, I highly recommend you learn. I highly recommend, this is personally for me. A lot of other producers may say otherwise, just use your ears or whatever. Yeah, you can just use your ears and figure it out. But if you can learn theory, like start with basic theory and go as advanced as you need to. But if you can understand that, your life is going to just be so much easier. You'll be able to write music like super quick. And nowadays, the way things are going, um, every artist is doing a lot of different things. You may be writing music for your fans and for your own brand, but you may also start writing music for, um, sync companies. And so when I say sync companies, meaning like these are companies that release music for videos, movies, and whatnot. And so they may be like, I need a deep house song, or I need, a trap beat or whatever. And then they ask you, and you're like, oh, I got to do that. And you got to do it kind of quickly. So learning theory is going to just make your life easier, and we need our lives to be easier because life is not easy. There's a lot going on in our lives. So like the more theory the better you're going to be than the producer that you may be competing with that doesn't understand it and takes them a longer time. So and I talk about competition in a healthy way, because it is a competitive field. Um, Usually when you're working with companies, there's usually a certain budget that they're working with, um, and they have to choose who they want to like give the job to. So the faster you are and the smarter you are, and the more creative you are, obviously, um, that's going to help you in that process. So learn theory. This next picture is kind of funny because it's true. Back up your music, because your hard drive could crash. I haven't had one crash yet, but I have a lot of friends who's had hard drives crashing. So I usually try to make uh, a double backup of my music. So highly encourage you to do the same thing. These are just like things that you don't hear about like when you're like taking classes and stuff, but I just want to like throw these at you because it's super important for you to back up your music, um, so you don't lose it, because you'll write great songs and then years later you'll be like, oh, where's that one song that I wrote and which hard drive is it on? Like organize yourself and start storing everything like sometimes twice, because one hard drive could die. um, and then nowadays, as you are learning, music, everyone, you can upload music from wherever you are. I use CD Baby and DistroKid. These are two different companies. Again, I'll repeat the names: DistroKid, DISTROKID, and CD Baby. These are known as aggregators, and they basically, you upload your music and you say, okay, send it wherever you want, and then they send it to all the different places, like Apple Music, Spotify, so and so, Title. There's like probably like over 100 different music, companies out there that people like listen to music from, and they'll put it on all the different places for you, and then you'll earn income from that. So um so you can do that, so you don't need like a label. I don't work with a label. I release music on my own, and I do that. So as you're doing this also, like, if you are going to learn a DAW, also learn how to like mix music as well. Okay. And it doesn't have to be like the you don't have to be like, oh, this is the mix that I'm releasing. Like, what I'm basically encouraging you to is, especially if you're a musician, is start preparing and like start thinking like a music producer. Okay. Because you're not that far away from a music producer, to be honest. Yes, like you're, and most of you are in school right now for this, so you're like, you might as well learn how to produce the music you're going to create anyways, and become that nerdy person, the producer that like is working with a computer with all the different plugins and the DAW, the digital workstation. And the better you learn how to mix, the the it's everything's just going to be better, because let's face it, like every time you write a song, like it's expensive to hire a mixing engineer and a mastering engineer every time you have an idea to make it sound decent so you can present it to someone. So if you can present like a decent mix to either another artist that you're going to be working with, or a vocalist, or another musician, or a producer, the better the mix sounds, the better your chances are to land that gig. So yes, like, so the idea could be really great, but it sounds like it's like a horrible mix. Like, it's just gonna sound crappy, and like that could like get, you could lose the gig because of that. So learn to mix as good as you can. Watch videos on it, whatever you can, because it will help you. And we'll come back to this subject. I'm still learning how to mix better and better. Like, trust me, it's like, it's a journey. Like, you don't just like take some tutorials and you're like, okay, that's it, I'm done, I got it, good to go. It's a lifelong journey, and I'm still learning stuff like all the time. I mean, I literally just got this book yesterday in the mail called Secrets of Dance Music Production, and there's just always something new to like pick up on. You're like, okay, I know this. Oh, I didn't know that. So, anyway, so okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about collaborations, because that's been part of my journey. So yeah, we spoke about GarageBand. I'm like learning this and that. So collaboration is a very important thing. I'll talk to you about my experience with it. So, around 2013, I was connected to this musician based out of Ibiza, or Ibiza, Spain. His name is Ingmarlo. He's a German music producer. And I share this because, like, I just met him because someone connected us. But this guy, where I was just getting started, this guy was pro. Like, meaning, like, he had been making music with labels since like the 90s, or the late 90s, early 2000s, like big labels based out of England and Europe, um, Cafe Del Mar and Buddha Bar, and these kinds of like brands. And, so he had this so much experience, and and we had connected, and he probably saw that like I was getting out there in the world, traveling, starting to produce music, but I was very new to it. So we started collaborating. So what is the idea of collaboration? Collaborations, two people coming together and sharing their resources, goods, talents, whatever, and to produce something new. So as you're collaborating with people, really understand why they want to collaborate with you and why you want to collaborate with them. Because there's a lot, like, as you create music, a lot of people will start coming to you, especially as you grow as an artist, and they'll want to work with you. But it doesn't always mean that it's a good idea. Okay, so you have to really discern when it makes sense to do that. And I'll share about this one is that, back then in 2013, this producer Ingmarlo, he wasn't really traveling. He had a family. He was a stay-at-home musician dad, and he wasn't really out there active in the music community, but he was still a great producer. However, I was not a really great producer, or even producing much at all, just kind of getting started, um, learning. Okay, but I was out in the world, like DJing, producing, DJing, like, and traveling, playing music, like literally, like I was starting to play like all over the world. So that was a good connection. So we started making music together as a brand, and we just kept our names as artists. It was DJ Taz Rashid and Ingmarlo, and it was a great uh, partnership because I learned so much from just music production just by even listening. It's not like he gave me like tons of tutorials and like he gave me a few basic, lessons um, around like Ableton and things like that later, which I'll speak to you about. That's another DAW music software. But so moral of this story is that find someone to collaborate with who knows maybe more than you around an area, and then find people to collaborate with where you can like literally learn from. So in the early process, like it's very important. Another musician is Shrikala. This guy is on the left here. Let's see. There's another. Oh, I guess this picture is not showing up, but um, yeah, so he's a New York based DJ, and the way I met him is that I actually like booked him for an event in Chicago, and I really liked his music, and like, we were booked together at another festival, and we just started talking, and be like, hey, let's maybe collaborate, and I learned, and I actually flew over to his studio in New York because I knew the value of working with someone who's been doing it for many years, as you will as well. And maybe that's you. Maybe you are that person who's been producing for a long time. But if you're not, find someone like that, and then make the effort, make the, like, whether it's an investment. Like I had to buy a flight, for example, to fly to New York. It cost me, a couple hundred with that. I had to get Ubers at this and that. So, like I had to invest money in that trip to go out to him, away from like my wife and family, and spend that time making an album. But like, and it was like two trips, and I was in Chicago at the time, but that resulted in an album that's actually like one of both of our like top songs. Like one song out of that album, out of that 8-song album, has like millions of plays, and it's like it's made us thousands of dollars, and it just like it keeps getting bigger and bigger. The song's called Native Spirit, if you want to look it up. So like out of that whole project of 8 songs, like one song came out that was like a hit, in our community, and it gets thousands and thousands of streams like daily, actually, which means we're earning money on something we did back in like 2015 or whatever it was, 14 maybe. I can't exactly remember the year, and we put the album out, I think 2016. Anyway, so collaborate, because it's super important for you to learn from from other people, and it's actually really fun to do that. So coming from there, so my days of GarageBand was cool, but for like maybe 2 years I used GarageBand. Then as soon as I realized, like, okay, this is actually, it's cool, but it's almost like, it's not super professional. Okay, at the end of the day, so I learned Logic, which is another Apple product, but it's like GarageBand's older brother, more mature. It's got more bells and whistles. So I was producing music on Logic from 20, I think like 15 to like 2018. So for like 3 years. But I was doing it, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't go to school for music production, so there was something missing. But I didn't really realize it until another um another music producer pointed this out. They're like, hey, like if you're gonna go professional with this stuff, like you need to take some classes and actually learn what's going on, because it's like another language, like you may be the most amazing piano player or guitar player, but that doesn't matter. Like if you don't know how to, you know, EQ something and compress something and like mix and do all that, especially in one of these DAWs like Logic or Ableton or whatever, you're going to struggle to, share your music in an easy way with the world. So I took this gentleman's advice, and I signed up with an online school called Pyramind. They used to have a location as well. They're based out of San Francisco, but now I think it's just online. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put down the money. It was a couple grand, and I did like um a whole year like a 1 year, basically a 1 year program that was like everything from music production, songwriting, mixing. And the coolest thing about that was, yes, they had online, like videos and stuff like that, but it also gave me like, I think nearly like 100 office hours with actual like teachers on their staff, like different producers. So, and I could pick who I wanted to take these, who I wanted to use these hours with. This to me was a golden experience for 1 year, because here I was producing music already, and now I had this opportunity to get inside the heads of other music producers. So for the whole year, like I was writing music, working with, the different teachers, other music producers, basically getting their advice, them teaching me about certain things on Ableton, which is what I was using. So I'll keep speaking more about that. Um, I was definitely nervous about this process, but here's another book. It's called The War of Art. The amateur believes he must first overcome his fear, then he can do his work. The professional knows that fear can never be overcome. He knows there is no such thing as a fearless warrior or a dread-free artist. I absolutely love this book. Another book that I highly recommend. It's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. I don't know if it's the best art book ever, but it's definitely great as you notice the resistance in your life, and resistance will keep showing up. Um, and really, resistance is your enemy. If you have to say, like, hey, like, what is, what's going to hold me back, and what's going to allow me to do this and that. So, resistance is this energy that comes up within us, at times, that actually stop us from doing what we need to do. So, as you become more and more professional, you're going to start noticing and knowing when resistance is showing up in your experience, in your reality, and you will you will know how to basically fight it. So it's an internal battle, and you just have to absolutely love what you do so much that when it shows up, you can just like slay it. So there's this book, like I said, like I recommend all my, whenever I have students I work with, or I'm doing any coaching or personal coaching or whatever with artists, I have them read this book, because it'll change your life, as far as how you produce music, how you create art in general, like, right, whatever it is. um, you'll just have a real good relationship with it and know how to do it. So, um, check that out. Anyways, so around 2018, I went from Logic to Ableton, which is another DAW, and I've stayed on Ableton. For me, it was like the holy grail. Um, I was just like, wow, like this is actually what I've been looking for. Logic, which I explained to you earlier, it was great, but I was never fully 100% comfortable making music on it. So Ableton allowed that process. It was just like more streamlined. Everything just kind of like showed up. So for me, like as an electronic musician, I personally love Ableton. Check it out. Um, Again, save your music. I just found this funny picture. Your programs will crash here and there, but so always, continue to save your music, and you'll just be happy. One cool thing about certain DAWs like Ableton is that if you don't save and it crashes, it does recover your work, but sometimes it may not. So just continue doing that. Um, and as you grow as a musician, music producer, you're going to hear about these things called plugins, right? So plugins are different. I mean, plugins can be anything from like actual virtual instruments to um, different effects, EQs, compressors, whatever, delay. Like there's literally a million plugins out there. Um, as you're getting started, and if you're getting started into working, just know that you don't need everything. Okay, I mean, eventually you have a lot of plugins, but you don't need to have a million plugins to get started. You can start with factory plugins just to get you started. You have to learn how plugins work. Okay. That's one thing I would tell myself if I were to go back, is really learn mixing and like EQs and compressors, like the basic stuff when it comes to putting music together is like learning how to just mix music, but also like how are these, like what's actually happening when you turn these knobs, you know, like there are lots of tutorials on YouTube and everywhere else out there on how to use it. So find good, either find a producer who knows what they're doing that's a friend of yours, explain to you, or watch videos, but really take the time to learn how to, you know, EQ different instruments, so they work in your mix and things like that. And then of course, you know, you got to test out your mixes out there, whether it's in headphones or your speakers or the car, as they say, is the ultimate. You know, if it sounds great in a car, you know, it's probably going to sound great wherever. But nowadays people are really listening to a lot of music in headphones, so you guys just test it all over the place. Okay, so education is super important. Also, obviously, you got to make money, so you got to get the, you know, music out there. You know, eventually, like you will sell music, that like you will sell music. It could be eventually, it could be actually very quickly. It doesn't matter. But I remember the first time I sold, you know, a song or whatever, like you just feel so good because you're like, oh my god, I sold something, I sold something I created, I sold my art. It is a glorious feeling. You want to try to remember that and just like be like, oh, it's one of those like epic moments of like, you know, some sort of success with your art and craft. So you, as you're making music, you're gonna sell music to movies, to TV shows, working with games or whatever, you know, videos. And right now, like there's so much content being created. Um, Everyone needs music, you know, in the back of their videos or whatever they're creating. So you got to start thinking about, who am I creating this music for? So really know your audience, okay? And then know know like how you want to reach out to these different companies or whatever. So you have to have a plan around like, are you, you know, who are you going to reach out to, and how you're going to create your electronic press kit or your resume around music and really get it out there. So nowadays, you know, music licensing is a big part. I'll show you a website that I built for my fans and followers, how they can use my music as licensing, and that gives me money throughout the year. And it's a very affordable process. But then you'll have like movies and things like that as well. That you can make a lot of money on when you sell your music. Um, so we'll go into that a little bit more. But I will tell you this: as a musician or music producer, you know, and that should be girlfriend or boyfriend, but like it's like you as you are growing, you just have to know this. And I'm going to be very honest with you here. Like this creative path is not for the weak. You have to be like super super strong, meaning like your mind and your habits have to be extremely like, you know, built tough, like, you know, like you have to wear like a bulletproof, because you're gonna, I mean, it's addicting, to be honest. Like it's very addicting, the creative path, because the better you get, the more you're gonna want to just like keep doing your music or like make a new song. It's like you have this relationship with it. You're like, you become like married to this creative force, you know, if you're creating music. So obviously you probably have, you know, a relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, friends, family, whatever, life, you know, that's also happening at the same time. And yes, music, you know, if you're going into it full time, like that will be part of your life. But there will be situations coming up where you really have to like balance the worlds, right? And it's difficult, it is not easy, okay? This is this has been me many times where my wife is like writing me or texting me or trying to get me to do, but I'm working, you know, I'm like, I don't have to go to another office. I'm in my room working, but like I just turn off my phone or whatever, and I have to be in the zone, you know. And there's been times also where like I've been on vacation, you know, but you love what you do so much, you're just like, you know, I'd rather be in the studio like making music right now while people are at the beach. And it sounds kind of crazy, but you'll see what I'm talking about. I love my family. I love going on vacation, but I really love making music, you know, and I can't lie about that. Like that gives me joy. Um, so, you know, just be aware of that is what I'm trying to say. Like this stuff will come up, you know, relationship, um, you know, family, other situations, distractions, friends. Oh my God. Like if you talk to a lot of producers, you'll see that, you know, your friends, the number of friends will start going down, not from a bad place, but just like you'll just be into doing what you're doing. And then your friends, for me, my friends are people who I work with and make music with. Uh, Most of my buddies that I used to hang out with, they're living their life and doing their thing. But like, I just don't have the time for that right now in my life. You know, it's my music, my family, and the people I work with creating music and other experiences. Um, so just sharing some stuff. Some other things important is this is a funny image, not necessarily true, but the idea is that you have to learn marketing. Okay, this is actually one of the most important things I can speak to you about right now is marketing your music. One of the areas that most musicians fail these days, is, you know, in the music business, is that they don't get the fact that, you know, you can't just write a hit. It's about how are you going to get that out into the world? You know, how are you going to get that into the um in the listener's ear, in their Spotify playlist, or like if it's your friends and family, like how are you going to get them to listen to it? You got to market it. And this is not always a fun subject for musicians to like talk about, because they're like, oh, business, I don't want to be salesy, I don't want to do marketing. But if you don't, you're gonna fail at 50% of the music business, which is the business side. Okay. Yeah, you may be writing great bangers and like great songs, but if you don't know understand the business side, you're just not going to be able to make it into a lifestyle. It'll be a great hobby and you'll have to work some other way to make it. So this picture's funny because it's saying 20 minutes working on a track, 4 hours promoting it on Facebook. Well, in certain ways, like it should be in a way where it's the other way, you know, where you're like 20 minutes, but realistically, you really have to get your stuff out there. And what I will say is that learning to create a database of followers, you know, whether it's emails is the best way to communicate, like a newsletter with your fans and followers. But of course, places like Instagram and Facebook and any other, you know, TikTok or whatever you're on, you know, social media platform, grow something. Like you gotta build some sort of platform. A lot of people will tell you you have to grow everything. Well, that may be true. It's a lot of work to grow all the different platforms. It's a lot of time and energy. So figure out what works for you. I really just concentrate these days on Instagram, and my main thing is my newsletter, you know, which I've been collecting emails from 2000, like I think 12 or 11. And so yeah, so marketing will put money in your pockets as a musician. Okay, if there's one thing you can learn from this from this class, is that if you don't, or if you can hire people who know how to do marketing, okay, you know, you but if you know it, then you know how it works, and then yeah, you can hire people, but know how it works for yourself. um I'll share this is a kind of fun song titles, very important. So do the research. This is another funny picture I found. You, like I was saying earlier, you're going to find a lot of people who are going to want to collaborate with you. So really be careful on how you use your time, because that's what it comes down to. Um, and how you, let's see here. Okay, how you use your, like basically how you use your energy working with people. So be aware of it. So I want to show you a couple things here before we take some questions. Tim, how are we doing?
Doing great. We've got some questions lined up for you here.
Okay, why don't we
So
take a few questions and then I'll go into this. So
sure.
Let's do it.
I've got one from Ben here that says,
Okay,
what
Ben.
aspects of theory have been most helpful? Knowing keys, chord progressions, and so on? Question mark.
Ben, that's great. Yes, I would say, okay, like, so whether you play guitar or keyboard, Okay, so I'm a little biased to this. I play both. My main instrument is guitar and piano, but my first instrument was piano. So um, if you know how to play keyboard, it's great because I'll go into your question in a moment, Ben. If you know how to play keyboard, it's great because we live in a world where everything can be MIDI. If you don't know what MIDI is basically like you use a keyboard. Now they even have guitars that you can use, but you can literally play any instrument, a trigger, any sound samples with the use of a keyboard. So in while you're learning theory, you might as well learn some keyboard, okay? Like how to just basically play uh, scales because you're going to learn you have to learn how to play melodies. Melodies are the hooks of songs. You know, this is the tune. This is the hook that people can't resist. Like they are like, oh God, that song is stuck in my head. Well, what's usually stuck in the head? Um, it's usually not the bass, notes. I mean, yes, there are some songs that have a really catchy bass riff, but it's usually some sort of a keyboard or a guitar lick. So in theory, learn scales, learn what makes a good melody, and different kinds of scales, whether it's minor, major, whatever it is. Learn and then experiment with it. Learn what makes a great melody than a shitty melody, or excuse me, like a crappy melody. Learn that and then study the top melodies of songs that you personally love or are out there, maybe even top 20 song, and you'll see there's like patterns. You're like, oh my God, like they're doing the same thing as this song. Like you'll see like what's working out there, and you have to study that like as much as you can in the process. And so yeah, so scales, melodies, and then yes, chord progressions are also extremely important. um Nowadays, it's crazy what's out there. Like there's people, you can buy like sample packs, and you can buy MIDI chord progressions if you're like stuck, like where you can get started by just a progression of whether it's jazz or rock or techno or house. Like, so yes, you can just drag and drop, a MIDI progression, and that could be part of your song. But if you know why that progression works, that's going to make you a more powerful musician down the road. And of course, theory just gets crazy into so many different things. But if you can learn how to make a really catchy melody, you're going to have, that's I would concentrate on that. Hopefully that helps, Ben.
Great. Max would like to know if you're certified in Logic or Pro Tools or any other DAW.
Thanks, Max. I am not certified in any DAW. I guess I should be. I teach people on Ableton, when I work with them one-on-one. I don't do I really Logic and GarageBand is the thing of the past, I want to say. Like when I found Ableton Live, I just went deep into Ableton and I absolutely love it. I I haven't even opened my Logic program for like a couple of years. I mean, I sometimes open it like when I need to export something like an old project, but um, yeah, if you're looking, to work with someone, there's definitely schools out there and programs, but I just teach people what they want to learn.
Fair enough. Another from Ben. What are your thoughts on paying for Spotify playlist placement? I've heard it works very well for some, but not all.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of this. Okay, so there's different theories around this stuff. I recommend personally not doing that, um, because what happens is that, again, these are my perspectives. So I'm not saying this is the only way. It's better for you to take that money that you would say pay a playlister or something like that. So they're like, oh yeah, $200 or $100 or five. I don't know. There's I don't really know what people charge, but it can add up. You should learn marketing. What I would recommend is like learn like Facebook marketing, which is basically when you do Facebook marketing, you are going to learn ads manager, and that's going to go on to Facebook, Google, I'm sorry, Facebook, Instagram and all these other different platforms. I think you can actually add up on or show up on Google. You can learn Google AdSense and stuff like that. But you can take that same money and create ads for yourself and create the demographics that you actually want to get in front of. So for them to click and follow that music over time, you're going to build more followers and fans that way than if you spend the money to put a song on a playlist that may get some nice plays for a little bit, but guess what? That playlister will probably take your song off after a month. And then what? So you have that 1 month to maybe like not just get some plays, but it's not a guarantee that whoever's listening to that playlist is going to go and follow you. So your whole goal in the Spotify world is to get people to follow you on on your um on your say Spotify profile. So like I don't know if this shows. I'll have to show you my. This is the back end. Let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. About section. This is my Spotify page. Okay, this is the back end. Let me show you guys my actual spot because that'll show you my follow. So the reason I'm sharing this, I think Ben is the one that asked. You want long-term followers, not just a short-term play. Like again, it looks cool if you're like, hey, like, you know, I put this, $50, $100, and I got like 500 plays. Cool. But how many of those became followers? Okay. So that's the question to ask. So learn Facebook marketing. That's my recommendation.
Here's a question from Logan. What does your process look like for getting songs ready to perform live? Do you use stems? Do you do a live mix? Or do you
Thanks,
improve
Logan.
some of it?
Yeah. So when I DJ, I actually use a Tractor, which is another software, and it just needs to be mastered loud enough for live gigs. Like the LUFS, and things like that. So depends on the type of music and environment that you're working for. If you're performing, if you're going to be become a live PA, meaning a live performance artist, then you need to obviously work with stems. They need to be mastered properly for live, and you can use platforms like you will have to probably use something like Ableton to do that. I don't do that, so I'm not someone that could speak highly about performing with Ableton. And that is a craft of itself. So I DJ, so I mix my music with other music when I DJ live. But yeah, you just need to make sure it's mastered loud enough, -8 LUFS or -10, that it's going to sound great coming out of speakers. And honestly, it could be the same, master that you're releasing for digital streaming as you're playing live. But if you're playing like nightclubs, it needs to be usually mastered louder. So hopefully that helps. Anything else, Tim?
That catches us up for the moment.
Okay, cool. So I just want to show you guys. This is my Spotify page. Like one thing I will highly recommend you guys do. So I'll just give you a little tour real quick. So these are actual albums I've put out. You can see that I've put out quite a few albums. This starting 2014. I'll give you a quick synopsis. Like I made this like meditation album, super ambient music. I really did not know too much about music production at this time. I knew how to play all the instruments, but I was learning. So I made this album with another friend. I played everything, and he basically mixed everything and mastered it. And so for starting here, 2014, these were the GarageBand albums, the Silk Road to Nirvana, Story of Satori, and then I started getting into Logic. And you can see I've definitely put out like quite a bit of solo albums, collaboration albums, probably somewhere between 400 and 500 songs out there. I highly recommend releasing singles these days because singles are going to, as you build your followers, there's this thing called Release Radar on Spotify, which you may already know about. It's going to allow you to, Spotify uses their algorithms to get it in front of your followers. That's why I was saying it's super, super important to get followers because they're gonna get your new song in their release radar when it comes out, and you want that, like, and you can rack up like thousands and thousands of plays like really quickly because of that, because they're actually people who follow it. These are all like singles and EPs. And then one thing I'll share is that playlists, right? So you can get on playlists, but you can also create your own. So like I created this playlist about 2 years ago. Right now it's got about 15,000 followers. So I built it in like 2 years, but I put my music, I put sometimes my friends' music on here, and I update this every month with new music. Um, but the cool thing is, like, because 15,000 people follow it, it's not like all 15,000 people are listening to this playlist like every day, but a lot of these people are. So what does that mean? It means repeat customers or repeat fans who are listening to your music all the time. So I've created hundreds of different playlists. If you go to my page, you'll see like these playlists that I'm featuring, but then I have tons of private playlists and other playlists. I even created one because I released so much music. I made one new releases of 2021, and I just add my new music in here whenever it comes out. That way, it only has a couple hundred followers, but these people are listening to these songs because I can see them in the back end that they are. So whenever I have a new song or remix or collaboration, I just add it on here. Because sometimes people will say, "Oh, it's hard to find all the different music because it's hard to navigate around Spotify." So you just make a playlist, so you can make a playlist for whatever and grow them. So I highly recommend at least creating one playlist, share that, update it regularly, create it for your audience. And it's really kind of cool. So I'm going to also show you that other website that I had told you about. Um, Basically, let's see here. So this is my Instagram. This is the social media wise. You can see like I do a lot of yoga type stuff. So like I post like when people use my music and and they and they share it. Like I sometimes like I will reshare it. Like this girl used one of my songs. She's in Australia, and she made a cool video with one of my songs. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but you get the point. So it's I try to. I'm not like a master at social media by any means. To be really honest, like, but I figured some things out, and I know what works with my audience for the most part. So I share my events on here, different videos of people doing yoga. It's actually my daughter. She broke into the studio. It's kind of fun. And you got to build something like this. You have to build something of a public. If you're going to be a musician, you have to have some sort of public um you know showing up. It's basically like a public resume of your music and what you do as a musician and an artist. And then of course you need a website. So I've got a website that basically works in a couple different ways, and it's actually very important, and I'll share with you how, if it loads. um Okay, so when you go to my website, djtazrashid.com, it's good to have a video of like what you do. Most of you see. My mission in life is to elevate the human experience. This is different with music. So this is when people come to this website. Like I want to capture their email. I also want them to know who I am, and then I also want to offer a couple things that I do that's important that they can like get access to like really quickly. Like you know, I haven't updated this page because it says tour 2020, but so this is basically they can book an event with me, so they can just like click that. They have different videos on some of the experiences that I do, and then when they click learn more, great, it's not working. So not a good example right now. So I have to see what's going on in the back end, why that's not popping up. But when they hit book an event, they can easily set up a meeting with me, and I can help them to see if there's an event that they can book. I also have that licensing program I told you about. I have this page where it's a royalty free, and this just works. So I don't know what's going on. But I basically have a place on my site where if people want to use my music there it is, in their videos and things like that, they can easily purchase a license and use my music. So when they click on it, you can see they can pay, you know, and they can go, and that's residual income over time because it's a subscription based thing. And then, you know, they can go in and, but I've like hundreds and hundreds of songs, so I can do something like that. I also work with a couple other musicians, and I have their music in there as well. So gives you an idea, that there's multiple ways of, you know, earning income, and you just have to start getting creative. You know, I mean, there's so many things coming up these days. Every time you look now on, you know, you know, you look on social media, there's an NFT and this cryptocurrency and this thing working. So things are just going to continue evolving. I work with what works for me. I personally love to still like put on most of my energy into my music production and touring, you know. And during that process and building my fan base, I can tell you from a honest perspective that you can definitely make good money and support yourself and family over the years as you build up your fan base, because if they listen to your music, Spotify, Apple Music, they're gonna pay you every month. And like, and you may get up to like thousand, you know, it's endless what you can go up to, but like in a couple of years you could be making like eight to like $6,000 to $10,000 a month on just streaming royalties. It's really possible. A lot of people complain and say, oh, they don't pay anything. Well, if you don't have any followers and fans, yes, they don't pay you anything because no one's listening to your music. But if you're putting good music out there and you actually have some followers and they're listening to your music, you will be paid. And it's definitely possible to make it happen. And I will say that it is not easy. Okay, Spotify, I've heard something like 60,000 new songs are being uploaded every day on Spotify. I mean, that's crazy. 60,000 new tracks every day. I mean, do the math over a year. That's, you know, millions of songs or whatever that is. So just like, yes, there's whatever, 7-8 billion people out there in the world, but like, you know, it's definitely competitive in the sense of like who's going to actually hear your song. So marketing, this and that, it's you need to study all this stuff. Like if you're going to make this into a full-time thing, it is not easy. I've been doing this for years now, since like, you know, full-time since 2000 like 14 15, and then I would say full-time music producer since like 2006 15 16. So it's been like 5 6 years, and it's like, yes, I'm making more money as a music producer, but like I have a family, you know, I've got a 2-year-old, and we're planning maybe to have another one. It's like your life will continue to expand as you grow. So it's not like, oh, I'm making this money, so I'm all good. Like, it's like, no, like I had different needs when I was in my 20s. You know, I'm almost 40. So like I have different needs now. So like everything just keeps growing. So you need to continue growing as well, mentally, skills wise, collaboration, marketing knowledge, how to, you know, promote your music. This, you don't stop learning. So if, you know, if I can finish up here, I would say that's the biggest message here is learn marketing, don't stop learning, make good music. And it's not an easy path, but you can definitely make it happen, because I feel I'm making it happen for myself and my family, and it feels really good. So I know you can do it as well.
Well, fantastic. Thanks, Taz. Great
Thanks.
words of advice for sure.
Thanks, Tim,
Well,
for inviting me. This was great.
yeah, really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, and hope things continue to go well for you.
Thank you, everybody. Stay in touch. If you have any questions, let us know. Have a beautiful day.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.